would push as hard as I could to get the baby out. The baby didn't come. I would throw up because I pushed myself to the limit, but nothing would come out. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Skye and I'm a first-time mum to a beautiful baby girl. Throughout my channel, I talk about all things motherhood. So pregnancy, labor, birth, postpartum, relationships, and everything else in between. Today's video, I'm going to be sharing my birth story. So my daughter was born on the 18th of May at 2:35 a.m. So this was a Tuesday. So Sunday night I went to bed and I had no signs of labor. And then I woke up at about 1 a.m. on that morning, on the Monday morning, with really mild contractions. They were consistent, so they were around 3 to 5 minutes apart, but they were, super mild. They were enough to keep me awake, so I couldn't go back to sleep. But at this stage, I didn't bother waking up my partner. I thought, well, if it was early, very early labor, then I want him to rest so that he can be there to support me. So I just, laid in bed, having the mild contractions and just waiting for him to wake up that morning. So we woke up in the morning. I obviously told him what was going on. And look, the contractions continued throughout the morning. Again, super mild, definitely not painful by any means, just a bit uncomfortable. And I was almost in denial. I thought, no, maybe it's false labor. I don't think this is early labor. I feel like that, I don't know, I just thought that I would have, a lot more pain than what I was feeling. So I was a little bit in denial, but the contractions did remain consistent, in the sense of they were happening regularly, but there was no pattern. So that day I basically did nothing. And when I mean nothing, I mean nothing. I sat in bed, I watched Netflix, I tried to rest as much as I could. I was on the couch, I tried to keep up my water intake, and also I just ate what I would normally have eaten. The mild contractions continued the entire day. So they started at about 1 a.m. and they continued right the way through till 5 p.m. on the Monday. And at around 5 p.m, my contractions went from 0 to 100 real quick. All of a sudden, I couldn't talk through my contractions. So I would have a contraction, I would just have to breathe through it. And then from there, I could not talk, and then another contraction would happen again. At this stage, they were about 5 minutes apart, and in that 5 minutes, I would either lay on the floor, I would lay on my medicine, my exercise ball, or I would lay on the bed, but I was not talking. I was just focusing and trying to get my mind in the game, because I honestly only at this point that I thought, okay, I'm actually in labor. I was still to this point in denial, thinking that maybe it was false labor. My plan was always to labor at home for as long as I could, and as long as it was safe for me and for the baby. So from 5 o'clock until 10 p.m, I labored at home with just Jared and I. Majority of this time, I was in the shower or I was in the bedroom. I would either be laying over the bed, with my arms on the bed and my knees on the ground, or I would be on the exercise ball leaning over that as well. They were the most comfortable positions for me. I didn't want to lay on my back. I didn't really want to lay on the bed at this stage. I pretty much was just, either in those positions or I was in the shower. So as I mentioned, because the contractions were so intense and so painful, I couldn't talk in between them. I really just focused on my breathing. Now, my preparation for my labor and birth, I've already done a video on this, so I'll link it in the description below and what I did to prepare my body for labor. But I was so proud of myself. I really did breathe through every contraction, and I just tried to focus on that one contraction. I wasn't focusing ahead, how many hours left have I got to go through this. I just said to myself, focus on this one contraction, get through that, have a break, and then I did the exact same cycle again. So I was really strong. So it was around 9 p.m. So it had been 4 hours, and Jared came into the shower and he said, I think we need to go to the hospital. Like, I think it's time we go to the hospital. He said, you are in extreme pain, and I've also been secretly timing the contractions. And I can't remember the exact timing, but basically it worked out that there was, I think, 4 within 10 minutes, and this was consistently happening for, I think it was 45 minutes at this stage. So that was very consistent. Jared was timing it, and he just knew that it was time to go to the hospital. My plan was to labour at home for as long as I can. So when he came in and said, I think it's time we go to the hospital, I said, no, I don't think we should go. I'm fine to keep going, because in my head I thought, if I go to the hospital, it's either going to slow my labour down and I won't be progressing, or 2, I will opt for an epidural, because at this stage, I honestly can't even describe the pain. It was in my lower back and it was in my stomach. My daughter was not breech, but for some reason, my back was just absolutely killing. I didn't want to go to the hospital, but I did hop out of the shower. So I hopped out of the shower, I laid on the bed. I'd already had a towel and everything down because I was kind of going to and from. And then as I laid down, there was a little bit of blood. Now, I wasn't concerned because I know that, what I had learned, I knew that this was completely normal, and that it actually meant that I was progressing along nicely. Again, I do just want to do a quick disclaimer that I put in so much time and research into my labour and birth that I felt so confident going in. I wasn't scared. I wasn't nervous at all. I was prepared, basically. Mentally, I was prepared, and what I had learned from my midwives and the research that I had done myself. So at this point, Jared said, look, I'm going to call the midwife just to let them know sort of what's going on. We had spoken to them earlier on in the day and said, look, I've got really mild pains. It could be labor, it might not be, but just keep your phone handy. So they were, my midwife was expecting a call. So at this stage, Jared then decided to call the midwife and let them know that I was very close to coming into the hospital. I actually couldn't talk at this stage. He was on the phone, and unbeknown to me, the midwife said, if she can't talk, get her to the hospital immediately. So I actually hopped back in the shower thinking, no, I'm going to keep on labouring at home. I've got this, I can do it. I don't want to go to the hospital. Hopped in the shower. I was only in there for a couple of minutes, and we actually ran out of hot water. So it was at that point where I said to Jared, let's go to the hospital. We ended up leaving for the hospital at around 10 p.m. And it was a 20-minute drive to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, my midwives hadn't actually got there yet, but I still went through to my birthing suite, and there was a midwife that I hadn't met before, but she was there just in the process before my midwives arrived. So I basically arrived there at about 10:30, and what they did is they wanted just to make sure that baby was safe, that everything was okay before I got back in the shower. Because the first thing I said was, can I get in the shower? I have to get that water on me. Just hopped onto the bed. She had a feel around on my belly, put the monitor on just to make sure that she could hear the heart rate, to make sure that the baby wasn't in distress. And everything was absolutely fine, tracking along nicely. So she said, get in the shower and get that water on you. I continued labouring in the shower. It had been about an hour and a half now with Jared by my side the entire time. I could not have got through it without him. And my midwives were also there, and at this stage it was 12 o'clock, so it was midnight. So I had essentially been in active labor for 7 hours, but I had only been at the hospital for about an hour and a half. One of my birth expectations or my preferences was I don't want to be checked how far along dilated I am. I didn't want any vaginal examinations, only if necessary. My midwives, they didn't ask me, you know, do you want to check to see how far along dilated you were? They were just letting me be in the zone and focus on each contraction at a time. Now at midnight, and my midwife said, look, I know your preference wasn't to have a vaginal examination, but did you want me to check just so that we know that you are actually progressing along and all this pain that you're going through isn't for nothing? So I agreed for the vaginal examination. However, I still stuck to my guns and I said, I don't want to know how far along dilated I am. I just want to know, is it time to get in the pool? Because I wanted to have a water birth. So I hopped on the bed, she checked me, and all she said was, get in the pool. And I just thought, yes, this is it. I must be at a 10. I'm about ready to push this baby out. I'm going to be meeting this baby any minute. Well, that's what I thought. So it was around 12 o'clock. I hopped into the pool, and at this stage, my water hadn't broken yet. That was a little discouraging, but I didn't let it get in the way. I remained focused and I had my head in the game as much as I could. So it was around 1:30 and my waters finally broke, and I thought, yes, water's broken. I've been pushing for an hour and a half. I've got this. I'm almost ready to have the baby. I can feel that the baby's going to be coming out any minute. And no, that wasn't the case. But because my water broke, my contractions got even more intense. And I didn't think this was possible, but it did happen. I was so fatigued and so exhausted. I would push as hard as I could to get the baby out. The baby didn't come. I would throw up because I pushed myself to the limit, but nothing would come out. And then I would start crying because I was just so upset that I'd gone through all of that, and then the baby still wasn't here. But I had no tears. I wasn't actually crying, but I was crying, but there was no tears. It was the weirdest thing ever. And then before I knew it, I was having another contraction again. So then I had to get my mind back in the game to start pushing and focusing on trying to get the baby out. So anyway, this was going on for about another hour, and it was at around, I think, 2:20, and my midwife said to me, what about you hop out of the bath and go to the toilet because maybe your bladder is full. And because I had been in there for so long and I was just trying to be as present and as focused and as strong-minded as I could, I said, no, I don't want to get out. I've got this. Like, surely the baby is about to come out. So I had another contraction. Nothing happened. Exactly the same thing again. I tried to vomit. I was crying. And at this stage as well, I was so fatigued that I was leaning over the bath. Jared was pretty much holding up my chest. I would even fall back onto and float on my back, and he had to hold me up. He was amazing, but I was that fatigued. He was pretty much holding me until I had a contraction, and then I had to just hold onto the bath, go through that process, and then I'd fall and he would have to pretty much catch me. It was so intense. Anyway, after that last contraction, I just said, maybe my bladder is full. I'm gonna get up and go to the toilet. So how it works in a birthing center, when you've got the pool, there's about 3 or so just small steps to step up, and then you go into the bath that way. And then there's also a pole there as well. So I stood up out of the bath. Jared was holding me because I was so fatigued I couldn't stand. So while he was holding me, I was also holding onto the pole trying to get out. So I stood up and I was standing at the top of the bath, holding onto the pole, all while he was holding me as well. My midwives kind of went down the stairs and I was about to walk down the stairs as well. And I just stood there and I said, the baby's coming. And next thing I knew, the baby's head came out, and I couldn't stop it. I did not even push. I honestly did not push, and her head came out, and I was just standing there with Jared next to me, the head hanging out, and I was just standing there waiting for the next contraction to happen so that her shoulders and the rest of her body could come out. So yeah, next contraction, and I had to push for that one. And yeah, shoulders came out, baby came out, and she was born at 2:35 a.m. and it was the most unbelievable, surreal moment of my entire life. I can't actually even describe that feeling. It was unbelievable. Jared was crying, I was crying. It was so emotional and so overwhelming. So we never actually found out if we were having a girl or a boy. So when my daughter was born, at this stage we were calling it the baby. The baby was born. My midwife actually had to catch her, and she handed me the baby, and I put her on my chest. And as I said, me and my partner, we were just an absolute mess, and we didn't even look to see if it was a girl or a boy, because we were just so happy that the baby was here. And it was my midwife. She said, "Are you going to have a look to see?" And I said, "Oh yeah." And then we started crying again, because then we realized that we had a beautiful baby girl. Obviously at this stage I was standing at the top of the bath, and the umbilical cord and everything was still attached. So I was holding my daughter on my chest as I slowly, very carefully walked down the stairs. And I hopped on the bed, laid back, and just had her on my chest, skin to skin, pretty much for the next 3.5 hours straight. She was on my chest the entire time. I did the delayed cord clamping, and I also birthed my placenta about 15 minutes later naturally. So I did have tearing. I think they call it a stage 2 tearing. Can't really remember, but basically I had 2 stitches. And I was just laying on the bed with my daughter skin to skin. I was breastfeeding her. She was honestly on me for the next 3.5 hours, all while they were just sort of stitching me up. They put your legs up, you kind of feel a little bit exposed, but look, I've just given birth. Honestly, everything just goes out the window, and nothing really matters once you're in there and you're with your midwife and your partner and you feel so comfortable. So it really did not bother me at all. I also did delayed routine procedures because my daughter's APGAR score was above 7. If you don't know what it is, just Google it, talk to your midwife, talk to your doctor. They will be able to explain what this is, but basically my daughter was healthy, I was healthy, we were both fine, so it was fine for us to just lay on the bed, have skin to skin, and breastfeed, and not have the routine procedures such as weighing and measuring and those types of things. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to my birth story. I had so much fun filming it. I think I still am in disbelief that I'm filming my birth story, because I've birthed my beautiful daughter. I'm so in awe of the human body, as you can probably tell. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.